Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I waited for them with a stupid kind of hope, the kind that feels like a habit more than a feeling. The clock on the wall ticked louder the longer they were late. I'd cleaned the kitchen twice already and set out the small tray of snacks, store-brand crackers, some cheddar cubes, and a lukewarm bottle of root beer I figured Victor might like. They showed up 40 minutes late. Claire breezed in first, her heels clicking across the linoleum like she couldn't wait to get back out. Victor followed behind, wearing that smug little grin that always made my chest tighten. "Hey, Dad," Claire said, handing me a small gift bag with blue tissue paper puffed up like frosting. "Happy Father's Day." Victor didn't say much, just nodded at me like I was the doorman and not the man who raised his wife. I pulled out the tissue and found a pair of socks. Black, no tag. Cheap ones. The kind you grab from a discount bin near the gas station checkout. "Thanks," I said, managing a smile I didn't feel. "Really thoughtful." Claire glanced around. "This place hasn't changed much, huh?" "It's home," I said. Victor let out a chuckle and flopped onto the couch, crossing his legs like he owned the place. "Man, these old houses. You could fit this whole living room in our master suite," Claire laughed. "Victor." I watched her settle into the love seat across from him, legs crossed perfectly, that purse of hers perched neatly beside her. Designer. Real leather, cost more than my first car, probably. "How's the business, Dad?" Claire asked, not really looking at me. "Still kicking," I said. "Oil changes, brake jobs, same stuff." She nodded, but didn't ask anything else. Didn't ask how I was doing. Didn't ask if I was okay living alone in the house where her mother died 13 years ago. I looked down at the socks still in my hand. $10 if that. No card, no note, just socks. Claire went on about some new Mediterranean place they'd tried. Victor talked about his new golf clubs. I nodded, smiled, but my heart wasn't in the room anymore. It was back in the garage years ago, when I sold my fishing boat plans just to help her cover her college tuition. The boat I'd saved for since before her mother got sick. That was supposed to be my dream. They stayed maybe 20 minutes. Then Claire checked her phone and said, "We've got to meet friends for dinner, but this was nice, Dad." Victor slapped my shoulder as he left. "Hang in there, old man." I stood at the doorway and watched their luxury SUV back out of the driveway. When the taillights disappeared, I closed the door and looked back down at the socks in my hand. This was what was left of years of sacrifice. Just socks. It was around 9 p.m., and I couldn't sleep. The socks were still sitting on the kitchen table, like they were mocking me. I flipped open the laptop, telling myself I'd just check the weather for tomorrow's shop work. Instead, I ended up on social media. Claire had tagged Victor in a photo, some fancy dinner downtown. A white tablecloth place with wine glasses the size of fish bowls. Victor's dad was in the picture too, holding up a glass of champagne with a big grin on his face. But it wasn't the smile that caught my eye. It was the watch on his wrist. Gold, thick band, blue dial. I'd seen enough of those in magazines to know exactly what it was. A Rolex Sky Dweller. Price, around $12,000. I stared at it. My stomach tightened. 2 months ago, Claire called me in tears. I still remember the way her voice shook. "Dad," I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. "It's medical. For Victor's dad. Something with his heart. We need 12,000. It's urgent. Please." I wired it the same day. Didn't even ask for proof, just trusted her. And now, here he was. No oxygen tank, no hospital bed, just a smile and a $12,000 watch, raising a glass like he'd just won the lottery. I sat there in my kitchen chair, frozen. My hands started to shake. She lied. Claire looked beautiful in the photo, hair done up, laughing like nothing was wrong in the world. Victor had his arm around her, flashing that smug grin. And there, on Victor's father's wrist, sat the truth. $12,000. The same amount she said was for surgery, medication, a hospital, number. It was for that damn watch. My hands curled into fists. The laptop screen blurred in front of me. I reached out and closed it slowly, like if I didn't slam it shut, it wouldn't hurt as much. But it did. It hurt more than I expected, not the money. That could have been burned for all I cared. It was knowing she looked me in the eye, begged me like I was still her father, and fed me a lie so she could make someone else feel rich. I sat there for a long time in the dark, the socks still sitting untouched, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't just disappointed, I was done. The rain had started as a mist and worked its way into a steady drizzle by the time I parked in front of Karsten and Blythe Jewelers. I'd driven by it 100 times before and never had a reason to step inside. The place looked like a museum from the sidewalk. Glass walls, white lighting, marble floors that probably cost more than my truck. I hesitated at the door, soaked cap in one hand, the other clenched around my wallet like it might run. Then I stepped inside. "Good afternoon, sir," said the woman behind the counter, polished, blonde, and so chipper it felt fake. "Looking for anything in particular?" I swallowed. "I just have a question." She smiled and tilted her head. "Of course." I pulled out my wallet and handed her a receipt I had printed from my online bank statement. $12,000 billed to this store on March 18th. This charge, I didn't make it. I need to know who did. She raised her eyebrows, took the slip delicately, and disappeared into the back without another word. I stood there dripping near a display case full of watches. One of them looked exactly like the one in the photo. A few minutes later, a man in a navy vest and silk tie came out holding a paper. "Mr. Daniel Reyes," he nodded. "Mr. Reyes, yes, that charge is in our system. It was for a Rolex Sky Dweller champagne dial. Paid in full with the card ending in 2446. That yours?" I nodded slowly. It was purchased by a young woman, blonde, mid-30s. I believe she came in with her husband. Claire, was it? Claire Reyes? My heart dropped. The manager flipped the page around and pointed to a scanned signature. Claire Reyes. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The room spun a little as I took the printout. Outside, the rain had picked up. I stepped onto the sidewalk and stood under the awning, watching water spill over the curb and rush down the street like it couldn't get away fast enough. She used my name, my card, my trust. I stared down at the paper in my hand, undeniable, official, and cold as stone. That little girl I once carried on my shoulders was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized, and I knew now. I wasn't imagining it. She'd sold me out for 12 grand and a glittering lie. By the third day, she had called 17 times. I let every one of them ring. Sometimes I just sat there and watched the screen light up, her name staring at me like it still meant something. Once, I picked up the phone and nearly answered, thumb hovering over the green button, but I didn't. On the 17th call, I finally blocked her number. The storm rolled in that night, thunder cracking like gunfire, wind rattling the kitchen window. I sat at the table, alone with the silence and the paper from the jewelry store. The words "paid in full" glared up at me like a dare. I stared at the house phone on the wall for a long time. Then I walked over, picked it up, and dialed her number from memory. She answered on the second ring. "Dad?" Her voice sounded too cheerful, too rehearsed. "You want to explain why my name paid for a $12,000 Rolex?" I said, my voice flat. There was a pause, then a sigh. "Oh my God, you're seriously calling about that?" It was a gift for Victor's dad. He's been through a lot. "A gift," I repeated, almost laughing. "With my money?" "You gave it to me," she said, sharper now. "You said it was for a medical emergency. That's because you lied." Another pause. Then her voice shifted, colder, defensive. "Look, I didn't think you'd understand. It's not like that watch was just a flex. It's part of Victor's world. These people we're around, they notice things like that." I gripped the receiver tighter. "So you stole from me to impress people?" "Oh, please," she snapped. "You're being dramatic. You act like you're some helpless old man who got conned. I needed help. You had the money." End of story. "No," I said, and my voice surprised even me. Calm, steady, final. "The end of the story is this. I'm done." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're not getting another cent. It means I'm not your ATM. It means I'm not going to let you treat me like trash and then collect a paycheck." "Wow," she said, scoffing. "So now you're cutting me off after everything we've done for you?" "For me?" I asked. "You gave me socks, Claire." She didn't answer. "I gave up everything for you. A boat, a future, your mother's last savings, and you gave me socks and a lie." "You don't get it," she said finally, quieter. "You never understood what it's like, what we have to keep up." "I do now," I replied, and I hung up the phone. I stared at the wall for a long time after that, the storm outside still roaring. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd finally told the truth, at least to myself. Elaine Parker's office was inside a modest brick building downtown, wedged between a tax service and a nail salon. Nothing flashy. That was why I picked her. I didn't need someone who charged by the inch of their heels. I needed someone who told the truth and didn't flinch. The waiting room smelled like coffee and lemon-scented disinfectant. The receptionist gave me a tight smile, then gestured to the door behind her. "She's ready for you, Mr. Reyes." Elaine stood as I walked in, her handshake firm and businesslike. She was maybe in her late 40s, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, gray blazer over a plain black blouse. No nonsense. "Let's sit," she said, motioning to a small table beside her desk. "You brought the statements?" I handed her the folder I'd put together, bank records, transaction histories, the jewelry store receipt. She didn't say much as she flipped through it, just nodded a few times, the occasional eyebrow raise. "She said it was for medical expenses," I said quietly. "But I have the receipt. She bought a Rolex for her father-in-law." Elaine leaned back slightly. "Using your account." I nodded. She studied me for a moment. "And you've given her financial help before?" "For years. College tuition, wedding, down payment on their first condo. I even paid off a credit card once when they got behind." "Did she have access to any of your bank accounts directly?" I hesitated, ashamed. "She had a linked card, just for emergencies." Elaine exhaled, more thoughtful than judgmental. "Well, she used it. That gives us a starting point. The good news is we can cut that off immediately. The harder part is making sure she doesn't try to open new accounts in your name or make claims to any of your assets." I nodded. "I want everything out of her reach." "All right, then here's what we're going to do." For the next hour, she laid it all out. Close all shared cards. Freeze any accounts where Claire was listed as a secondary user. Draft a cease and desist if she tried to make further withdrawals. Transfer funds to a new set of accounts with restricted access. And finally, set up protections for my estate. "It's going to feel like a lot," she said, sliding the first document toward me. "But this is the only way to stop someone like her from bleeding you dry." I stared at the paper. My name was at the top. It didn't look like much. Just a few typed paragraphs and a signature line. But signing it felt like I was cutting off a piece of myself. "I paid for her wedding dress," I murmured. "Her mother would have wanted that." Elaine gave a small nod, then looked me straight in the eye. "I'm sure you did what any good father would, but at some point, good fathers have to stop being doormats." My hand shook a little as I signed the line. But when I leaned back in the chair, something settled in my chest. Not peace, not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. It started with a knock on the door just after 8 in the morning. 2 officers stood there, one of them holding a clipboard. "Mr. Daniel Reyes?" "That's me." "We need to speak with you at the station. There's been a complaint filed regarding financial misconduct involving a family member." I didn't have to ask who filed it. Claire never stayed quiet for long. I didn't resist. I grabbed my jacket, locked up the shop, and followed them out to the cruiser. The whole ride over, I stayed silent, my jaw tight, my heart pounding. But not from guilt. From disbelief. They were actually trying to flip the story. At the station, they put me in a plain room with gray walls and a table that wobbled slightly every time I moved. A man in his 40s, Officer Reynolds, came in with a folder and a coffee he didn't offer to share. He sat down across from me, looked through some papers, and gave me that polite but skeptical stare I'd seen too many times when people underestimated me. "We received a complaint from a Claire Reyes. She claims you've been mismanaging her inheritance funds and using coercion to control her financially." I blinked. "Inheritance?" He raised a brow. "That's what she stated." "There is no inheritance," I said calmly. "I'm still alive." He paused at that. I leaned forward. "I never gave her access to an inheritance. I gave her help. College tuition, wedding expenses, a home loan, all out of pocket. The last $12,000? She said it was for a medical emergency. She bought a Rolex with it." "Do you have proof?" I pulled a folder from my coat pocket. I'd brought everything Elaine told me to bring. Receipts, statements, even the printout from the jewelry store. I handed it over. Reynolds skimmed the pages. His eyes moved faster the further he went. After a few minutes, he set the file down and let out a quiet sigh. "Okay, this paints a different picture." "Yeah," I said. "One where I'm not the thief." He nodded slowly, and for the first time that morning, his expression softened. We'll document all of this and include it with the file. Based on what I see here, it's unlikely anything will move forward. Good, I said. An hour later, I walked out of that station feeling like I'd just crawled through a fire. I wasn't sure what stung more, Claire trying to ruin me, or the fact that part of me had expected it. I called Elaine from the parking lot. She tried to bury me, I said. Elaine didn't sound surprised. You're cutting her off. That makes you dangerous. She'll do whatever she can to claw back control. What now? Now, she said, we rewrite your will, make it ironclad. That way, no matter what she says or tries next, she won't get a penny when you're gone. I looked out at the road, hands tight around the wheel. I think it's time, I said. And for the first time in weeks, I meant it. The notary's office was quiet and smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner. I sat across the table from Elaine as she slid the final version of my will toward me. The language was precise, cold, and exactly what I needed. I triple-checked everything, she said. The trust is ironclad. Claire's name doesn't appear once, not as a beneficiary, not as a fallback, not as a witness. She has no legal path back in. I stared down at the document. My signature line waited at the bottom, patient and final. I picked up the pen and signed. Just like that, it was done. Elaine gave a small nod. Congratulations. You've officially taken back control. I should have felt sorrow or guilt, but all I felt was a strange, quiet calm, like a door had finally closed and the air on this side was clean. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Outside, the sky was cloudless for once. Bright blue. I didn't even get to my truck before I saw him, Victor's father, standing by a silver Lexus looking oddly out of place on the sidewalk. Mr. Reyes? He called out. I hesitated. Yeah? He walked over slowly, holding a small black box in both hands like it weighed more than it should. I heard what happened, he said, about the money, the watch, everything. I didn't say anything, just waited. I had no idea Claire used your card to pay for it. If I'd known, I never would have accepted it. She told me it came from Victor's bonus. He opened the box, the Rolex was inside, gleaming like it had just been taken off a showroom pillow. I'm returning it, he said. It's not mine to wear. I stared at it, all that pain packed into one polished hunk of metal. I appreciate that, I said quietly, taking the box from him. I really do. He looked embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. I wish I could say I was surprised by her, but I've seen hints of this before. I nodded once. Yeah, me too. He reached into his pocket and handed me a business card. If you ever want to talk, or have a beer, you're not the only father who's been taken for a ride. I took the card and tucked it into my wallet without a word. That night, I opened the watch box again at my kitchen table, just sat there staring at it. I thought of the sacrifices I'd made, the years I spent chasing Claire's approval. I turned the Rolex over and read the engraving on the back, "To Dad, with love." It made me sick and free all at once. The next morning, I listed it for sale. I already knew what I'd do with the money, something better, something honest. I was fixing the hinge on the back gate when I heard a car pull up. Not the mail truck, not the neighbor's Ford. I wiped my hands on a rag and peeked around the side of the house. Claire and Victor were walking up the path. She looked thinner, more tired than I remembered. He looked like a man who'd been yelled at all morning and was about to be yelled at some more. I didn't move, just waited. Claire spoke first. Dad, can we talk? About what? I asked, keeping my tone even. She stepped forward, clutching her purse like it was a shield. We messed up, I know that, but things have been hard lately. Victor's dad cut us off. We're kind of in a bad place. Victor nodded, hands stuffed into his coat pockets. We just need a little time to fix things. We wanted to say we're sorry. I looked between them. Sorry for the Rolex, the lies, the false report, or just sorry that the money dried up? Claire's face twisted. It's not like that. You're twisting everything. No, I said. I'm seeing clearly for the first time in years. She took a shaky breath. Dad, I'm your daughter. You were, I said quietly. Then you treated me like a wallet, then like a threat. Now I guess you think I'm a backup plan. Victor tried to cut in. Look, we just want to work this out. I held up a hand. Save it. Claire's eyes welled with tears. You're really going to shut the door on us? After everything we've been through? You shut that door the day you looked me in the eye and lied, I said, and you slammed it when you tried to ruin me with a false complaint. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I'm done, Claire. You don't get to say family only when it benefits you. Victor looked away, jaw tight. Claire took one step forward. I stepped back. No more chances, no more guilt. This is over. And with that, I turned, walked to the front door, and closed it gently behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't need to. Some things end quietly, and that was enough. The pawn shop offered $8,000 at first. I didn't even argue. A week later, the Rolex was gone, and the cash was sitting in a certified check on my kitchen table, along with a note from the shelter director thanking me for my generous donation. I dropped it off that afternoon. Are you sure you want to give this much? The woman asked, her eyes wide behind round glasses. I'm sure, I said. Use it for the kids. For meals, beds, whatever you need. She hugged me before I could stop her, and when I walked out of that office, something inside me felt light. Not happy exactly, but clean. Like I'd finally scrubbed off years of guilt I didn't even realize I was still carrying. That weekend, I met Elaine at the park like we planned. She had brought coffee and wore jeans for the first time since I met her. No heels, no blazer, just a woman enjoying her Saturday. You look good, she said, handing me the cup. Lighter? I feel lighter, I admitted. We walked the loop around the lake. The trees were just starting to turn. Kids chased ducks along the shore. A couple was having a picnic under the shade of an old willow. The world looked peaceful. So what now? Elaine asked, nudging me with her elbow. You gonna take up fishing again? I smiled. Maybe. Or maybe I'll finally take that welding class I used to talk about. Turn that old garage space into a little side shop. You thinking about retiring? Not quite, just doing things on my terms now. She nodded. I like that. We sat on a bench near the water, letting the wind brush past us like it had somewhere to be. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then Elaine pointed to a group of kids kicking a soccer ball near the hill. You know, we've got a project at the shelter, fixing up the rec room. You handy? I let out a short laugh. You're asking a mechanic if he's handy? She grinned. So that's a yes? That's a yes. The sun started to dip, casting gold across the lake. I watched a little girl in a red jacket laugh so hard she fell into the grass. Her dad scooped her up and spun her in a circle. I thought about Claire. I thought about all the years I tried to buy my way into being needed, and I let it go. I think I'm finally okay, I said. Elaine didn't say anything back. She just smiled and passed me another coffee. And for the first time in a long, long while, I truly believed I had something worth building again.